Hello everyone, I'm Luke and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I just posted my video for my top 10 favorite movies of 2017, and if you haven't watched it, there will be a link in the description. But this one is going to be my top 5 least favorite movies of the year. And two reasons as to why I'm making this a top 5 video. The first one is that there were not a lot of bad movies that I saw this year. I saw quite a number of films. I didn't see as many as I would have liked to, as I said in my first video, because I got really sick in both the months of April and December. I got pneumonia in April and I got the flu in December. It was bad. So there were quite a number of movies that I wish that I had gotten the chance to see. And also, I work. Time gets away from me. I don't get to see every movie that I want to, unfortunately. I'm going to try to do better in 2018. But I also wanted to make this only a top 5 because I feel that when you do a top 10, you have to give more reasons as to why you put things in a certain order. And also, as I said, when I put this as a top 5, the rest of the movies that I didn't include on either my favorites list or my least favorite, it's not that they were bad or good, it's that they were sort of middle of the road. They weren't good enough to be my favorites, but they weren't horrible enough to be my least favorites. But oh boy, these 5 movies, I've got some serious grievances for all of them. Because here's the thing. One of these movies is a major awards contender this year, and I just can't stand the fact that this movie is getting all the recognition and the praise it is for just how awful it is. And my number 1 movie of the year, of the worst movie that I saw, it came out on Christmas Day 2016, but I saw it the first week in January, and oh, I can't wait to rip this movie to shreds. But here we go. So, here is my top 5 least favorite movies of 2017. So, number 5, this was such a disappointment, but Kingsman: The Golden Circle. I was so looking forward to seeing this movie because I was thoroughly in love with the first Kingsman. I didn't see Kingsman: The Secret Service in theaters, but rather I rented it many months after it became available, because a word of mouth told me that Kingsman: The Secret Service was a real fantastic movie. So I decided to check it out, and lo and behold, I fell in love with it. So this go-round for the sequel, the trailers were all so promising. It looked like they were going to elevate the movie, they were going to heighten the stakes, they were adding new characters, and I was really looking forward to it. But the end result was, not only was the movie not on par with the original, but it's an embarrassment. I talked about this in my favorites movies, but the live-action Beauty and the Beast movie was not a disappointment or an embarrassment compared to the original. It was on par with the quality of the original 1991 animated version. It wasn't superior, but it wasn't an embarrassment. This movie completely dropped the ball. There are so many unnecessary, inappropriate jokes in this movie that the film just didn't need. I felt that they wasted their villain with Julianne Moore. I felt that she was completely in there for the sake of just having Julianne Moore as the villain. There was no depth to her character whatsoever. She had a backstory and a reason for what she was doing, but she didn't feel like a true villain like Samuel L. Jackson's Valentine was in the first movie. And also, the fact that they unnecessarily killed off 2 very important characters that were in the first movie completely rubbed me the wrong way with this film. So that's why it's number 5. Number 4 is Dunkirk. I understand what Christopher Nolan was trying to accomplish. He wanted to make an awards movie. He wanted to make a film that was worthy of Steven Spielberg's Schindler's List or James Cameron's Titanic. But here's the thing. Schindler's List is a cinematic work of art because it goes so far in depth with what was one of, if not the worst moment in human history. With the Holocaust. And from an insider's perspective. It showed you the emotional turmoil of this man who was trying so hard not to get caught because he was breaking away from what society and what the Third Reich wanted him to be, for him liberating all these Jews. And then with Titanic, it was James Cameron being as historically accurate as possible with the details. Even though it had a fictional love story as the centerpiece, the actual Titanic story is still very, very well told, and it's not disrespectful. It's very respectful. It shows the audience just how horrible that event was in history, and it shows you the real human tragedy. Both Schindler's List and Titanic. Here's the problem with Dunkirk. You never got emotionally invested in these characters. I hated the angle that he took with the soldiers, that it was one for all and all for one, rather than a band of brothers that being in service is supposed to be. It was very, very cynical. It was very, very narrow-minded in the way that the direction was handled. And also, the script is a mess. The script is all over the place. The fact that it's telling the story of Dunkirk from 3 different perspectives, and it's not clearly defining which timeline takes place at which specific moment, was very, very bothersome. It's still stunning to look at visually, but with a clunky script and no sympathetic characters and a message that really doesn't gel well with me is the reason why I had to put it on this list. I couldn't get past that very cynical viewpoint of this movie. All right, so number 3 is Boo 2: A Medea Halloween. I can't believe that I sat through the second one. I mean, to be fair, my mother just wanted to go to the movies on Halloween, and I love my mother and my brother, and so we went to the movies, and boy, was this a disappointment. I mean, I didn't know what I was going to be, what I was hoping for. I mean, but here's the biggest insult. At least the first Boo, A Medea Halloween, had a really good B storyline message when it came to Brian's relationship with his daughter and how important it is to have this respect from both sides of the father-daughter relationship. But the second that the sequel starts, it completely threw that out the window and we were back to square one. And the worst part of it is that the scenes kept dragging on with jokes that were just not funny. And that was the worst part. When it wasn't forced references to how modern we are with 2017, we have YouTube stars in the featured and supporting roles. It was just Medea and her brother and her 2 friends just running amok, making jokes, and a lot of physical comedy that just was not entertaining. It was really, really disappointing. And like I said, I didn't know what more I was expecting, but it was just bad. It was just bad. All right, number 2, the runner-up for my least favorite movie of the year was Cars 3. Coco, which came out this year, I said was a masterpiece. I think one of the best movies that Pixar has ever made. Cars 3, on the other hand, is one of the worst. I can't say this enough. This movie was garbage. It was so bad. I didn't see it in theaters. I rented it because I just wanted to see, because I heard some people saying that this movie was fantastic. I heard some people saying that this movie was garbage. So I finally was like, you know what? I have an afternoon off. I'm just going to rent it and see how it is. It was so bad. And here's the worst, most egregious part of it. The first half of this movie is fantastic. It's essentially about Lightning McQueen losing his touch and becoming part of the older generation of racing while these new up-and-comers are doing so much better than him. And so when his company, Rest Ease, sells him to a different sponsor, this new guy says, listen, why don't you just be a spokesperson for all these products? You can retire, you can you can be the new face of Rust-eze without racing anymore. But Lightning McQueen is insistent on doing one last race because he completely blew out and he wiped out in that scene that's in the trailers, and he recovered from it, but he doesn't want to go out on that note. He wants to have one last race. And oh, here's where it gets so bad. His sponsor makes him get a trainer who is a wannabe racer, but she can't because her family said that she would never succeed and that she was a girl. And so she has this long-lost dream of hers to want to be a racer. And so she trains Lightning McQueen, not very well, mind you, and he just goes for it on his own. But rather than finish the race, even if he lost, at least he would have finished it. He forfeits midway through the movie, gives his number to his female trainer who has never raced in her life, and she wins. The ending was so painful to watch, and it made me so angry that I will never be able to look at the Cars movies ever again without that horrible, horrible message of basically just giving up when you know that the inevitable is just going to happen. If you're going to lose, why not just quit halfway through so that you don't have the stink of failure on you? It just, it bothered me so much. But that was the runner-up. The worst movie that I saw in 2017 was Passengers. I freaking hate this movie. I hate this movie so much because, okay, when I reviewed Passengers back in, I think I posted that video in like February or something, I didn't spoil the ending. I'm going to spoil it. So if you haven't seen Passengers, I don't recommend seeing it, but you have to hear me out as to why this is so terrible. So the basic premise is that you have all these people that are on this spaceship that are going to be traveling for 120 years to a brand new home. And Chris Pratt plays a character whose pod wakes up 90 years too soon and malfunctions before he's supposed to actually wake up. And after spending a year by himself in isolation on this ship, he gets lonely. And he stumbles upon Jennifer Lawrence, who's sleeping in her pod. And because he's watching these videos of her interviews before she went under into suspended animation, he falls in love with her. And rather than be alone, he malfunctions her pod and wakes her up. I mean, it's basically an allegory for rape. He basically signed her death warrant by knowing that there would be no way to go back into suspended animation, and he basically pretended and lied to her that if his pod malfunctions, hers must have too. And then, of course, the robot bartender tells her that he woke her up, and she is rightfully pissed. But here's where it gets even worse. When they're in a life-threatening situation that they have to then save the entire ship, he decides that he's going to sacrifice his life, but she says, "I can't live without you." And when they save the ship, they stay together. And when everybody wakes up 90 years later, they're both dead. And I was just so freaking pissed that this movie tried to write this off as this beautiful star-crossed love story about these two people that never would have ended up together in the real world because she was rich and he was poor, and it turned it into a rape allegory, and it freaking made me so mad. I can't believe that movies like this get greenlit. I don't know what screenwriter was hopped up on what, or what studio executive saw this and was like, great, we'll make this movie. Let's put two big A-listers in it so that people will go see it. It was so bad. I can't articulate it enough. Passengers is not only one of the worst movies that I saw this year, but one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. I mean, just okay, so there you go. That is my top 5 least favorite movies of 2017. I hope that that wasn't too painful for any of you. I hope that maybe I've helped you dodge a couple of bullets. If you had heard about those movies, I cannot, especially with Cars 3 and Passengers, do not see those movies. But you know what? Tomorrow I will be posting my most anticipated movies of the year, and if you haven't already seen my favorites list, There will be a link down in the description to it, as always. So thank you so much for watching. Be sure to give this video a big thumbs up if you liked it. Hit the subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. Click the bell icon for notifications. My links to Instagram and Twitter in the description down below. And I'll see you next time.